Nice fresh cup of hibiscus tea, a little bit of honey. Great way to start a project. So today what we're going to do is we're going to make a loaf of bread. I think today I'll probably make a whole wheat or multi-grain type bread with rosemary. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set the sponge. So I've got some water here, just warm to my finger. So there's 1 cup of water. I'm going to put in about a teaspoon of yeast. Just a nice level teaspoon of yeast. Let that set in there and get going. That's actually maybe a bit much in the yeast, but it'll do. And we'll put in a bit of sugar, just maybe the same. I normally, when I'm baking or cooking, prefer to use turbinado sugar. It's not quite as sweet and sugary, so to speak, as the white sugar, and not quite as molassesy flavored as the brown sugar. Just has a real good flavor. So we'll let that start to let the yeast. Yeah, the yeast is starting to foam up a little bit. We'll give that a minute. Then we'll put about a cup of flour in there so that we've got a real wet mixture. We'll give it a little gentle move around, and then we'll just put it in a warm spot, and we're going to just let it set for a little while, maybe 20-30 minutes, while I get other things ready, and then we'll start actually mixing up the flour to get the actual bread mix, and we'll be good to go. Okay, it's been about 5 or 6 minutes maybe. You can see right there's some bubbles starting to happen around the inside. There's some there. So we know the yeast is starting to activate, so that's a good sign. So what we're going to do is put 1 cup of flour in now to make, and I've added an extra cup of water after I got it kind of started. So there's 2 cups of water, about a teaspoon of sugar, and about exactly a teaspoon of yeast. To that we're going to add 1 cup, and I'm going to use white flour to start this off with that 1 cup to set the sponge, and that's going to make a very runny mix, not really a bread mix. You're not going to get dough like this, but that'll allow it to activate, and I'm not going to leave it long enough to be sourdough, but in about half an hour to an hour we'll have a real good foaming mixture of flour, and then what we can do is add in our other flour. A lot of times I'll actually leave this overnight and do after I've got all the flour in it, and do the no knead type bread, where if it sits overnight it develops the glutens on its own rather than by the fact that you've been kneading it and working it, and so you'll still get the same amount of rise and everything in the bread without actually having to sit there and knead it and mess around with it. So I'm not going to worry too much about the lumps right now. We'll just let it get started. This has been maybe a minute and a half since we just were on here, and I just went and got the cloth and put some warm water on it, and I was just going to cover it over, and in that short time you can see already all the bubbles are starting to form in this little wet flour mixture. So this is working out real good in just that short period of time. Okay, so it's actually been closer to half an hour. Oh, look at that. Yeah, that's risen up really nice. And it's actually thickened up a little bit. Right. Oops, very good. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and add some more flour. I don't do a mix. I do everything by a pinch of this and a little of that. So I'm going to add some flour till I get the consistency that I want of a good dough, and then we're going to let it rise. So we'll carry right on. Okay, so we're going to start some chili here. I'm going to put just a little bit of lard in this old Dutch oven that we got here. This is an oldie, but boy, that's been around for a lot longer than I have, that's for sure. That's the real one, folks, not a replica. Now we're just going to give that lard a minute to start to melt there, and then we're going to start getting the meat and brown that up a little bit, get some onion in it, and we'll carry on. Alright, so I've got the ground meat. Now the only difference between this recipe and the last one I did on making the old style chili is I'm using ground meat on this one rather than the cubed pork. So this is ground beef. All the spices, the little bit of cumin, the chipotle, all that stuff that was in the previous recipe is exactly the same in here already, and I put those spices in here 2 days ago, and then I've been sort of dry marinating this in the fridge to allow the flavors to get all through the meat. So let's just, well, there we go. I can hear that nice sizzle going on. I had a little bit more meat, but I ended up making some of it into a few hamburgers. I don't eat hamburgers all that often, but they were nice. So we're just going to give that a few minutes to get started. Start browning, and then I'll cut them in my own light. Then I'll cut up the onion. We'll get some tomato in there, and I'm going to put a little corn in it, a little green pepper. We'll get her going. Okay, so there we go. I'll just rake up a few coals here. I'm going to get another Dutch oven right in here, right in the wood stove. We're going to bake our bread right in there. Now we don't need too much. The only thing here is because we can't put the coals as easily all the way around and the heat's going to come from the back, we're going to have to go in there and give this a little spin around from time to time. But there we go. Just set that right in there, just like that. We'll let her go. Every maybe 5 or 10 minutes, I'm just going to give that a, sort of a half turn. Okay, the ground meat's browned up nicely, so I'm going to go into the cold room next to me here, grab an onion or two, and we'll see how it goes here. This is, I was telling Tom at East Grand Woodsman, that right beside my fireplace, my wood stove, is a wood room, which is about, well, pretty near half empty right now. I have a block there for splitting any kindling that I need, and an old axe. There's about a face cord on either side, which of course is a little bit down on this side. Another one goes in the middle, which has been used up. And then the cold room is right here. I'll get the light on. And just for Tom's sake, that hatchway there is the door outside, and we undo the latches. Those baskets aren't supposed to be there, of course. And there's a ramp that comes in here and suspends about waist high, and the wood comes shooting down in there from just outside. So we have one person outside shooting the wood in, and it comes right through here, and I catch it in my hand, and it just gets stacked up. How's that for pretty cool? That's the lazy way to do it. So anyways, back to the cold room here. Oh yeah, I've got mint hanging here to dry. I got garlic. I'm not a prepper. I don't have a lot of supplies. It's not like I've got years worth of supplies stocked up, but we do keep enough stuff around to keep us going. Well, there's not many potatoes right there, but there's more potatoes, turnips, some onions. That's probably good enough for one. So, keeps us going. Okay, so this cutting board that I'm going to use here is one I made. On the flip side, keep that from rolling away, it's routed out, and it's 1/4 of an inch deep, probably slightly 5/16, maybe a little bit. But at any rate, what I use this for is that if I want to slice jerky, I take a roast or whatever I've got, I can set the whole thing down. Let's set that off to the side for a minute. I can set the whole thing down on the cutting board, and then you sort of push down on the top of the roast. And I don't use this knife, I use a longer, thinner chef knife, and you just slide it along the wood like this, and you just slice off the meat. When you lift up the roast, you've got a piece that thick. So you've got your jerky, your piece, and then you just lift it out, set it down, slice it again, and you just keep going until you've got all your jerky sliced up. So it works pretty good, and just thought I'd show you that because it's just a dandy little thing. Go off to the side. We'll get this onion chopped up. We'll get it in there. Okay. Get that into the meat. Let that carry on. We'll give that a chance to cook down just a little bit to soften up, and then we'll move on to putting the rest of the stuff in. So we'll get that done now. I'm doing this kind of the hard way because my the regular lightweight gloves I use for this kind of thing are in my pack at the moment. So I'm using welding gloves, but they certainly do keep the heat off, that's for sure. Okay, so what we've done is put in some onion that we chopped up here. That's good. That was been in there maybe 10 minutes to help soften it up a bit. And then we got some green pepper and corn. We'll just add that in. Oh yeah, we put the tomatoes in. This welding glove works, but it's awkward. Alright, we'll just let that stuff all kind of simmer together. Oh goodness. We'll start slicing that tomato up in a bit. Should be nicely softened up, warmed up now. We'll just leave that go for a while. Just let the smell get better and better. Okay, so here we go. Oh, hot. Oh, look at that, just bubbling and sizzling away. Well, that's about it. Still haven't cut those tomatoes up, but man, we got green peppers and corn and tomatoes and all the spices, and man, that smells just too good. I'll tell you all how it tasted. You can take my word for it. Okay, folks. There we go. How's that look? I had to taste a little. It's actually very, very good. And to go with it, I've already got this out just so we could see it. A loaf of bread. That's not bad, Timber. Get your nose away from there. Timber wants to taste test, make sure it's safe. So, I want to thank you for watching. We're going to go and give it a try. Boy, how's that, eh? Well, I want to thank you for joining me today. It's always appreciated. It's certainly encouraging when I see more people watch, and I really love to read the comments as well. So if you have any questions, by all means ask them. Any suggestions of something you'd like to see, that's always cool too. Everybody have a safe week. Everybody have a great Christmas if you do Christmas or holiday, however you spend it. And we'll see you all next time. Take care.